Alright guys, Tom here and welcome to the review of WWE Monday Night Raw on the 13th of August, so that was last night and I am pretty tired, so I'm going to do my best today because last week's video that I did for Raw had a really good reception of views. It's currently on about 3.5k views, which is absolutely incredible, so I thought that since it went down so well, I think I'm going to do another one and hopefully you enjoy. So we're just going to get straight onto the review. And the past few weeks I felt, is it really worth having 3 hours of Monday Night Raw spread out and having slightly okay Monday nights but not great? But this week my view has completely changed because last week I went away with it like, that was shit. It wasn't that good. It was average. It was probably a little bit over average, but it wasn't that good. But this week they just released everything out of the tank. You'd think they'd be saving everything for Summerslam, but they literally did everything they could do to get the views in before Summerslam. It was crazy. It was a really good night. It's the best Raw I've seen for ages, about a few months now, and it was really good. I would give it an 8.5 out of 10 maximum. That's a really good review for Raw, because if you compare that to PPVs and stuff, which you'd be thinking about 9.5s, it was up there with nearly PPV matches. It was a really good show. Okay, so sit tight and I'll basically tell you what everything happened on the night. And we started off with some crazy pyros. I'm not sure if anybody else noticed, but it seemed like they'd got more pyros than they usually do. There was fire and everything. It was really good. I'm not sure if they don't usually do that amount of pyro. I'm not sure. Last week's was pretty poor, but I did actually notice that they had used more pyro this week. I'm not sure if anybody else did, but tell me in the comments if you did. And we also got the new intro that they used for the first time last week, so it's nice to see them still using that, and with the rap theme song that they're using from Raw 1000 in all the Raw intros, which is really nice, even though they did say that they wouldn't be using that and it was just for Raw 1000. Now, 13th of August Raw was in Dallas, Texas, and it was pretty clear that SummerSlam is only 6 days away, and they went into the first match straight away. And on WWE's Twitter they did tweet that the first match of the night would start with Big Show and CM Punk. It was also on WWE.com, so we're all expecting it, and this actually gave us a really good taster for what is to come for SummerSlam on Sunday. And this was a really good advantage for John Cena, as you can see how they both perform against each other, and it also gave him resting time, although that didn't really help out because we later find out that he is actually in a match, but I'll save that till later in the review. Now, I personally don't believe that Big Show should be in this triple threat match. I don't think he should be in SummerSlam. He's not good enough. He's not a good enough performer or wrestler. He's too big and boring to watch, but we had a really good match to start off the show. This is actually the third time that we've seen CM Punk start Raw, because obviously last week he came out when AJ was announcing what the two matches she had already planned for tonight, and then the week before CM Punk was complaining at Jerry the King Lawler about what he said about how he should be given respect, and he had a really long cutscene for about 15 minutes having a go at Jerry the King Lawler sitting on the announcers table. So this is the third week that we've had CM Punk come out, and it's getting a bit boring now. Although lucky for us non-CM Punk fanatics, he didn't actually say anything and we got straight into the match. CM Punk versus Big Show in a singles match, no championship on the line. It was simply a taster for SummerSlam to all the WWE universe, which I thought was a pretty nice touch. And Show was in complete domination. He was completely manhandling Punk all the way around the ring. The only advantage Punk has on Big Show is his speed and his quickness and his reaction to deal with what's coming next. That's the only thing that CM Punk has on Big Show. Big Show is too strong. There was one point where CM Punk was trying to take him down 5 times and he still didn't go down. And he only managed to get him down with a quickness off the ropes. This completely showed the WWE Universe that Big Show is in it to win it. He's not just in it because CM Punk ruined their match 2 weeks ago. He is in it to win it completely, and he has every single chance as much as John Cena and CM Punk to win it. Not sure if WWE are going to choose that he's going to be the winner, but he has much ability to win the match as much as John Cena and CM Punk together. They both have their talents. John Cena is quick and strong, and CM Punk is rapid, has really good reaction time, and can pretty much do anything in any single situation. But Big Show is so strong, he can manhandle anybody. He has that awareness. He's been in the WWE for, I think it's since 1995. Yeah, I think it's 1995, and it's a really long time. I remember when he made his debut. So Big Show has a lot to prove that he can actually be in the big matches at SummerSlam. So I think I'd be really interested to see if WWE do actually choose him to win the WWE Championship. I really don't want them to. I don't think he's good to watch. He's boring, but he does have the ability to win with his strength and everything like that. He does have the ability to win, but I don't want him to win because I don't think he's he's not a very good entertainer. He's a good wrestler, but he's not a very good entertainer. If that makes sense. And Show did actually do shh to the crowd as if to say shush the haters, and he wants to prove that he can win. Like Jericho, he can win in the main event. But for SummerSlam, I'm going to pretty much keep the SummerSlam predictions away because I'm going to upload a single video for every single match. So I'm going to keep the SummerSlam predictions away. So I'm not going to say who I think will win or who should win. So yeah, I'm going to kind of keep away from the SummerSlam thing and just keep to Raw today. Now, one random thing was that Daniel Bryan then came out. The match was really, really short. It lasted for about 3 minutes. And then Daniel Bryan interrupted it, coming out saying, "No, no, no." And obviously the crowd's reaction is yes, yes, yes. Personally, I think they should stop this gimmick. It's a bit stupid now. I don't really understand it. It doesn't really do anything. It's just weird. I think it's just putting a really, really bad light on it, and it's just weird and cringy. But the match carried on until Daniel Bryan came in the ring, assaulted CM Punk from behind, and Daniel Bryan was trying to prove that he does think that he deserves a WWE Championship title spot at SummerSlam, and he thinks that he should be in the Fatal 4-Way, because obviously he had a run with CM Punk and that AJ kind of like love triangle thing, and Money in the Bank, he thinks that he should have another shot at the title, as he's had 2 title shots. He's had the World Heavyweight title shot at WrestleMania, and then he had the WWE Championship spot at Money in the Bank, and WWE must be really, really confident in his ability and must think that he has a worthy personality to be the WWE Champion or the World Heavyweight Champion. He obviously has a clear future in the WWE. I can't see him being a champion for at least another year. He's not quite at his peak yet, but I think he could well be a WWE Champion or a World Heavyweight Champion in the future, definitely. But now back to what was happening on Monday Night Raw. And Daniel Bryan basically tried to submit Punk and trying to prove to everybody, just like Big Show, that he can be in the big matches. And he tried to submit Punk, but the match was already over. And then John Cena came out and completely dominated. He took Big Show out first, and then finally Daniel Bryan, and John Cena and CM Punk were both left in the ring, and Big Show and Daniel Bryan were on the ramp, and then AJ comes out and she basically announces a tag team match. She says that it will be Big Show and Daniel Bryan versus CM Punk, and CM Punk's like, "Oh, don't give me John Cena, don't give me John Cena. John Cena!" And then it's John Cena, and this is the main event for tonight. And they kind of did it at a weird time. I'll leave that to later, but they put it in a really weird spot. But we have a tag team match in the main event for WWE Monday Night Raw on the 13th of August. Looks great. And then we move on to another really big thing. And Michael Cole and Jerry the King Lawler advertise the contract signing of Brock Lesnar and Triple H later in the night, which looks great as well. But that was right at the end of the show. But we then had some more commercials. And after the commercials, there was a segment with JTG and Caitlyn, and basically JTG was complaining, and on Twitter the other night he was complaining that there's a 3-hour spot on Raw and people like him just can't seem to get into it. For some reason the same people are in it and just main eventing it, and people like him, the young bright talent, can't get into matches. AJ overhears them and says, "JTG, get in the ring." And then JTG gets in the ring and his opponent comes out, and it is Ryback. And his face when Ryback comes out is hilarious. It's just like, oh, for fuck's sake. And you can pretty much guess the outcome of this match. I was really, really wanting JTG to win, some new young talent that actually finally beats Ryback, somebody that is undefeated in so long. It's ridiculous how long his streak is going to last, and every single week we get Ryback fighting, and you think, oh, maybe this guy's going to win, and he just goes on and on and on, and nobody ever does, and it's just getting ridiculous now. They really need somebody to step up and to beat him, a nice, bright, young talent. Well, basically, Ryback is amazing from the start. He doesn't even let JTG start. Ryback's a weird character, really. He's not heel, he's not face. He gets the Goldberg chance. They kind of make him trying to do the Goldberg character. Always winning, going on a massive streak. Strong, not too scary, but amazingly strong and powerful. But straight from the bat, basically Ryback gives him a knee hook clothesline and then finally a power bomb. The match lasts hardly any time at all, gets the pin, 1, 2, 3, Ryback wins yet again. Not sure how long this streak is going to last, but they really need somebody else to win, and it's getting so boring. They do it week in, week out, and somebody needs to beat Ryback, a young bright talent, please WWE. We then get a little bit of an advert to say that Rowdy Roddy Piper, the Scottish Beast, is here. And we get a choice of who we choose on Twitter, who we want to be in the Piper's Pit. We have a choice of Y2J Jericho, The Miz, or Ziggy Dolph Ziggler, and I definitely chose Jericho. I'm not sure if these votes actually count or if they just make them off the spot, because I think what happened after, the scripting and everything would have been so hard to do in about 2 minutes after finding out who would actually be the person that starred on the show. But we got everybody out anyway, so it was a bit of a disaster. But I'm pretty sure that they don't use the votes and they make up the results themselves, which I think is a bit stupid really. What's the point? But I do believe that they make it up themselves and not look at the Twitter at all. Then after the commercial, and we had another commercial, we have so many on WWE Monday Night Raw since it's now a 3-hour show, which is ridiculous, but I suppose it has to be done to make the money. But then we got an advert for Santino Marella versus Cesaro for the United States Championship, but it's in the pre-show, so it's not that good. Not really a really good announcement, because most people won't even be able to see it. But I guess it's nice to have that championship up. I personally think Santino Marella as a champion is ridiculous, immature, and he's not a champion at all. He's hideous. He can't even wrestle. He couldn't even climb the ladder in the Money in the Bank match. He had like 3 attempts and he just got scared and went down. He uses a stupid sock, like a socko for Cactus Jack. It's ridiculous. I don't even think WWE should employ him. He's a bit embarrassing really. He plays the character well, but he's not a wrestler. He's a good actor, but he's not a wrestler at all. Making him a champion was the worst idea ever. It's probably a worse idea than if they ever made Hornswoggle the GM of WWE or the COO of Raw. They just really need to get Cesaro the champion and get somebody else in there and make the United States champion big again instead of having to squeeze it into the pre-show, which is a bit stupid. So I really think that they should make the United States Championship big again, like when Kofi Kingston had it. Come on, Kofi Kingston was a great champion. These two guys, they're not faces. Santino Marella is arguably a face, but he's popular within the WWE universe. He's funny, but he's not a face for a wrestler reason. He's funny. He's a face because his character is hilarious, he's Italian, he's something new, but he's not face. I wouldn't say he was face. And Cesaro, obviously, is a heel, not a very nice guy, a bit of a show-off, a bit cocky, and he's just come out. Apparently he's a rugby player. He's not a rugby player at all, it's just a WWE story. Looks a bit stupid with how he wears the rugby gear in the ring, but that match should be pretty interesting. Hopefully we get a new champion in Cesaro and then get another champion after that, because I wouldn't like to see either of these guys the champion, to be honest. I think Cesaro, having him the champion, would give it a little bit more boost to the championship. So it would be nice to see who comes out the winner, so swiftly moving on. Then we get a little bit of a segment showing Rowdy Roddy Piper, which gets a little bit of a cheer, and then it goes on to HBK, and then it gets a really big delayed cheer for some reason, and it shows HBK answering the phone. Piper tries to talk to him, and it looks like HBK is talking to a lawyer or something. Not particularly sure, but I get the idea that WWE are trying to make HBK more involved in the Summerslam match between Triple H and Brock Lesnar than we actually first expected. But we'll get more news on that later in the night, of course. We then go to the ring, and it shows Heath Slater chatting shit to the WWE Universe as usual, the one-man band. And then R-Truth comes out for his singles match against Heath Slater, and of course he's not in a tag team match this week because Kofi Kingston is on tour in Saudi Arabia, I believe. I can't really remember. It's in a country like that, I think. And R-Truth was completely all over him. Heath Slater's helpless, and I think R-Truth won him in about a minute and a half. It was a really good win. And R-Truth looks really geared up for SummerSlam. And then, since R-Truth is vulnerable and he has no Kofi on his side because it's a singles match and Kofi's not here at all, so he can't be defended, the primetime players come out, Titus O'Neil and Darren Young. Of course they don't have AW anymore because he was fired by WWE for what he said on the Twitter, and his account was actually suspended, but they both came out and completely beated R-Truth up. Pretty cheap actually. I'm not sure if it could be seen clever. since they attacked somebody who's helpless to himself as he has his friend doesn't have his friend near him in Kofi Kingston. Pretty cowardly, I think. But I would really like to see the primetime players win. They've got amazing talent. They're really strong, quick, talented, of course, and really bright and clever. But without AW, I'm not particularly sure what their future is. I might do a separate video on that, because I thought using AW was a really good idea. Obviously, since they fired him and wasn't in their plans, they might go downhill. I'm not sure. Maybe AW could come back at SummerSlam. But I'm pretty sure it's official that he's been fired from WWE and it wasn't planned. So I can't see that at all due to the Twitter saga. Now at this point Raw was looking really good. I think we have some more adverts. And then Michael Cole does his usual tout thing and shows touts of Mark Henry in London for the Olympics. So it pretty much shows that Mark Henry is going to be coming back, as he does say, "I'll be back" in the touts. But it does look like he had a good time, so that's where you've been all the time, Mark Henry. We also get some flashbacks of Del Rio and Sheamus' little saga going along with the Fate Police and Sheamus nicking his car exactly 1 week ago. And of course, Alberto Del Rio doesn't have the World Heavyweight Championship match anymore at SummerSlam. It also shows a WWE exclusive of Booker T flipping out over Alberto Del Rio's actions with the police. Maybe Booker T is a little bit out of his depths, I'm not particularly sure. We does get an assistant on Friday, which has a match between two divas, Eve Torres. I would really like to see to win this. She was great for John Laurinaitis, so that should be good to watch. We also see a tout from Alberto Del Rio saying he will have words with Booker T on SmackDown on Friday, so that should be really interesting to see how it unfolds and who will get the World Heavyweight Championship spot. Maybe it's Randy Orton, that prediction that I uploaded a few weeks ago. I'm pretty sure it will be, guys. Next match we get is Sin Cara versus Lord Tensai, a very heavy competitor for Sin Cara. Sin Cara is way too fast for Lord Tensai, but Tensai's too big. It's big versus small again. Big Show versus Punk. Fast versus strong. Sin Cara did have a small botch off the top rope. He went for the Swanton Bomb and completely missed. But he then made up for it by doing an amazing kick on Sakamoto. Then onto Lord Tensai and he gets the quick pin, and it was a really quick match as well. And of course, Lord Tensai takes out his anger on Sakamoto, who is supposedly worshipping him. And I'm not really sure what they're going to do with Lord Tensai. I think something really big is going to happen. Like they're going to punish him or something. Because you can't just take anger out on him like that. But nevertheless, great win for Sin Cara against a really big guy. Props to the guy, I really like him. And then we get another cutscene with HBK. Asks an official if he's seen a guy. And if he does see him, tell him. But don't tell him that he's been asking for him. Bit confusing. But then he says yes. And then the cutscene stops and we get some more adverts. It then shows Rowdy Roddy Piper in the ring for Piper's Pit and Jerry the King Lawler in the ring, and he's going to announce who will be the special guest on Piper's Pit. If they do actually count the voting, I will be surprised that the recent SmackDown where Jericho made fun of Vicky on his show would have had any result on the results of this voting, because I definitely chose it because Jericho was absolutely hilarious on that show. And of course Y2J does actually get the votes. I think it's 52% he gets voted in, so a really convincing win for Jericho to be on Piper's Pit. Y2J's character at the moment is really funny, and I'd really like to see him win at SummerSlam against Dolph Ziggler to show that he can win in the big matches against the supposed Money in the Bank winner. But of course, Vicky Guerrero interrupts Rowdy Roddy Piper and announces that Dolph Ziggler's going to come out. So Dolph Ziggler comes out, and Ziggler basically says Jericho will end up like the failed Rowdy Roddy Piper, which was a bit harsh, I think. And he also says Jericho's finished and his career is completely over. Vicky starts talking some rabble, and then Jericho completely shouts like really loud for ages. It was really funny. And Jericho says that he'll beat Dolph Ziggler or Ziggy at SummerSlam. The Miz then comes out mocking Jericho and says that he's kind of like Ziggler, because they can both win the big one, but he kind of says that he's won more than Ziggler because he's that kind of guy. Like I said, I think the vote's scripted because we got all three people out, and how it worked together, I don't think they could have scripted it to work any other way in such a short space of time, about 1 second between the voting and Jericho coming out. Miz tries and makes Rowdy Roddy Piper and Jericho leave because it's his ring, and he says that Dolph Ziggler can stay on his ring. He thinks he owns the place, but then Jericho takes out the Miz, and then Ziggler and Jericho and Rowdy Roddy Piper are left standing in the ring victorious. Jericho is an amazing face at the moment, and I think he's going to do really, really well at SummerSlam. Hopefully he'll win, not quite sure. There's no title on the line, but it's kind of a little bit of dignity on the line as well. Can he win the big one? I think he can. We then get a triple threat match between Jericho, Y2J, Dolph Ziggler, and The Miz. Jericho has a lot to prove, but also Miz and Dolph Ziggler do, just to prove that they can be in the big one as well. It was basically Dolph and The Miz versus Chris Jericho. They were teaming up ridiculously, but that all went to pot sooner or later, as when Dolph Ziggler went for the pin, Miz rolled him off. Had a slight argument, but it was all sorted. Jericho used a little plastic thing on the announcer's table to whack both of them with, which was quite cool. But it shortly turned out to be a triple threat match as well, as they'd both given up working together. As they never seem to work in triple threat matches when two people work together, because there's obviously always going to be one person that needs to pin. Jericho gives The Miz the walls of Jericho, and Miz starts tapping out, but Vicky Guerrero distracted the referee whilst he was tapping out. So it didn't count, but then Dolph Ziggler took complete advantage, took out The Miz, quickly pinned him, and the match was over in a flash. And I personally don't think Vicky should be out there. I think it's really unfair when they have managers out there shouting, and it's really annoying for the opponent. But they got the win, and Ziggler goes into the SummerSlam match with huge amounts of confidence. So good luck to both of them. Want Jericho to win. Not really that bothered, but I'd really, really like to see Jericho win. We then get a segment with Eve Torres and CM Punk. Eve says that she's liking CM Punk's new look, and CM Punk says he doesn't have a new look. Eve also says that nobody believes that CM Punk is the best in the world, and she says that Cena is the best in the world. CM Punk gets angry, and he says that he's going to go and tell Cena. We then get a really, really, really long catch-up of the night so far. I think that Raw were running a little bit too ahead, as the show did actually end up finishing in 3 hours, and the last few weeks it's actually ended in 3¼ hours. We then get another segment where it shows HBK, Shawn Michaels, and he accidentally bumps into Cena, and he looks a bit edgy. CM Punk then appears behind John Cena after HBK's left and apologised. CM Punk basically says he's the best in the world, and SummerSlam is all about CM Punk, and Cena is too self-centered, and it should be all around CM Punk and not Cena. CM Punk leaves, and Cena smiles. We also get some more adverts, and in them adverts there is a Wade Barrett advert. I'm pretty sure that Wade Barrett's going to come back on the tour in England, and he could quite possibly appear in Manchester when they do go to Manchester on tour, of course.
We then get a Divas match. Caitlyn and Layla, the Divas champion, versus Eve Torres and Beth Phoenix.
Obviously these matches are very boring and are just simply fillers. This is the problem with the 3-hour show. There's lots of fillers. Anyway, the only funny thing about this match is the crowd wanted to bring tables. They were shouting tables, tables, tables. The match ended pretty much like a Divas match always does. 1, 2, 3 pin by Caitlyn. Caitlyn and Layla pick up the win. Boring match as usual. Typical Divas match. I'm talking fast because Divas match are completely pointless and they don't show anything at all. It still shows that Eve Torres is still jealous of Layla's championship. That's all for the Divas match. Thank God. We then get a huge Brock Lesnar versus Triple H catch-up. We all know it. They show it every single friggin' week. We then get a segment in the car parking lot, and it pretty much shows that Triple H is going to come. That's what she said. Anyway, we get the main event already, which is a bit of a weird one. I mean, they keep the Brock Lesnar and Triple H contract signed until the last, which was really, really strange. Anyway, we get the tag match. Big Show and Daniel Bryan versus John Cena and CM Punk. Seems such a long time since I said that at the start of the video. Anyway, Big Show is in complete domination. We get a little bit of footies when CM Punk and John Cena each hit themselves on the back so they get tagged in. Kind of trying to prove themselves that they are worthy of the WWE Championship at SummerSlam. Big Show feels like he's not needed as Daniel Bryan's doing the same as what Punk and John Cena are doing by tagging himself in, and he really, really wants to prove that he's worthy of the WWE Championship. They might announce on SmackDown that he's actually included into a fatal 4-way. Not sure if this will happen. Should be pretty good though. Maybe Booker T makes him the #1 contender going into SummerSlam for the World Heavyweight Championship against Sheamus. That would be pretty good, but he's already had it at WrestleMania and lost in 18 seconds. Big Show goes and sits on a chair as Daniel Bryan's not giving him any chance whatsoever to be in the match after his little domination at the start, so he sits next to the announcer's table and just watches on by. Punk tries to do the 5-star knuckle shuffle, but Cena tags himself in and then does a high knee on the turnbuckle and a bulldog exactly like CM Punk. Punk walks out and gives him a funny stare like he's copying him again and trying to get the spotlight as well. Punk walks up the ramp. Cena gives an AA to Daniel Bryan. Big Show's nowhere. He doesn't really care. Daniel Bryan gets pinned by John Cena, and John Cena and CM Punk win. Punk goes back into the ring and hits Show with his belt, but Cena doesn't get hit at all with Punk. Nothing happens. They just stare each other down. But CM Punk tries to shake hands with Cena, but Cena doesn't do anything. It's a bit of a weird one. This was epic tension building for Summerslam, getting all the monies in, getting everybody excited for the pay-per-view. We then get an interview with Punk with Josh Matthews, and Punk basically says Cena just cares about himself, and he's all really self-centered. We also get a little glimpse of Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman in the parking lot. Just a little quick snap. And then we get Damien Sandow versus Christian. Christian comes out with a huge pop. And of course Sandow did what he did to Brodus Clay. Beat him up last week because he doesn't want dancing in the WWE. Sandow is in complete control and gets a really surprise win after Brodus Clay comes out and tries to distract him. He just stands there in the ramp. Christian tries to pin Sandow whilst he's distracted. A little rollover pin. Sandow kicks out of 2. Sandow quickly perseveres and gets big win shortly after with a quick 1-2-3 rollover pin as well. Brodus Clay looks on. Sandow, a huge win for him against Christian, who is a fan's favourite. We then get a small segment of Shawn Michaels looking down at Brock Lesnar. And apparently HHH hasn't arrived yet, but you could probably guess that he has. Ever since the main event, the Raw went downhill. It felt a bit flat and boring and a little bit... the tang to it had gone. But anyway, we get Brock Lesnar coming out with his manager Paul Heyman, or his representative, and Heyman basically says that HHH need this to prove that he can still wrestle, prove his personal dignity to his family and his pride. Heyman says it will be a beating and he's going to embarrass himself. HBK then comes out. You all think he's going to say anything, but he just stares at him and waits for Triple H to come out to a huge pop. HHH quickly signs it, looking at Brock Lesnar the whole time, maybe looking out to see if he's going to do anything. Usually contract signings don't go too well. Lesnar then signs with, it seems okay at the moment, then he throws the contract at Triple H and just sneaks out the ring and just walks on basically. And at this point, Raw is feeling very, very dead. We're coming up to the 3-hour mark. It's usually 3 hours and 15 minutes, and they've got a huge half an hour to fill. So what do? Michael Cole shows touts to Booker T. I was going to do a tout, but I thought, nah, I was feeling really tired after the first hour. We also get a segment with HHH and HBK, and basically HBK says to HHH that HHH is on his own, and HBK is pretty much making it clear that he doesn't really want to be a part of it. We then get another recap to waste time. It's a really long recap actually. We then get an interview from Big Show in about 5 seconds, and then it all gets exciting. We hear a crash of cars. You can pretty much tell that it's going to be within the segment of HHH, HBK, Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman, and it is. Big Show is left by the interviewer and they run over with the camera, and HBK has crashed with Paul Heyman. HBK is shouting at him, it looks like it's Paul Heyman's fault. Lesnar then grabs HBK and smashes into the camera. The camera goes black, which I thought was a bit stupid. And then you can just hear like loads of tape and like doors crashing and everything. And it feels like he's been abducted. And I first thought that the next time you see him would be at SummerSlam. But in fact, after the commercials, you see AJ distressed and HHH distressed as well, shouting at himself, feeling like it's his fault. And then Michael Cole and Jerry are really serious, but the people behind them are just like smiling and laughing, which is quite funny. They were acting as if he's dead. But anyway, you see Lesnar coming out from the side of the arena with HBK on his shoulders. He brings him to the ring, chucks him in the ring, gives him an F5. Paul Heyman's there as well. Kind of feels like they've planned it all along. Not sure if they did or not. And Brock Lesnar tries to break Shawn Michaels' arm. HHH comes running, but Paul Heyman stops him where he is, and he says that if Triple H makes one more move, Brock Lesnar will break his arm. But Brock Lesnar broke it anyway, and Paul Heyman flips, and he's like, shit, she broke his arm. And the tension is huge, everything is building for SummerSlam. This Raw was amazing, 8.5 out of 10, crazy rating, I thought it was awesome. You gotta watch it if you like this review. Thanks for watching, really good match. The main event was a little bit disappointing, but this contract thing and the abduction and everything was really good. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed 30 minutes of crazy review. Thanks for watching. I've said it a million times, but yeah, watch it. It was really, really good, and goodbye.